The hills of Kentucky once held a wooden structure hidden from busy roads, where snow fell on quiet trails and where silence whispered between the trees. In that forgotten place, men arrived tired and alone. They left with smiles on their faces and warmth in their hearts. Yet not all of them returned to their families. The house was called Millbrook Inn. The women who welcomed guests were the Cunningham Sisters. 4 daughters stood together, their voices gentle, their kindness unmatched. Each visitor believed he had found a home. But under the wooden floor, beneath the stones near the stream, and inside the hills nearby, lay secrets that stretched back 20 years. Horses walked alone out of the forest, their saddles empty. Caravans were found abandoned, supplies untouched, campfires cold. People whispered in towns far away about men who vanished near Millbrook. At first, leaders ignored the fears, thinking wild animals or thieves were to blame. But as more faces disappeared and more footsteps ended near the inn, one truth became clear: something terrible lived behind those warm smiles. The story began in 1831. A man named Jeremiah Cunningham died from a long sickness, leaving behind 4 daughters. His land reached across valleys and hills. He had built a resting place for travelers long before roads were safe. His daughters Margaret, Catherine, Sarah, and Elizabeth were young, alone, and far from city help. The oldest was Margaret. Her eyes missed nothing. She knew how to count coins, measure risk, and manage people. Catherine, only 2 years younger, looked like an angel. Her soft voice and gentle touch could calm any troubled soul. Sarah, the quiet one, loved plants. Her mother had taught her how leaves could heal or hurt. The youngest, Elizabeth, had eyes filled with joy. Her laughter could melt fear. Their home stood between wild lands and the edge of growing towns. Stone fireplaces warmed guests in winter, and soft beds brought rest to those who rode hard paths. It had once been a safe shelter. But after Jeremiah's death, the sisters began to understand something dangerous. The woods offered more than privacy. They offered freedom. And freedom, without watchful eyes, can grow into something unholy. In winter of 1832, a man named Thomas Kellerman approached the inn. He came from Richmond, a place filled with buildings and people. He was older, lonely, with silver in his hair and sadness in his heart. His wife had passed away, and no one waited for him at home. He carried a heavy purse of gold meant for business in Kentucky. Snowflakes danced around him as his horse carried him uphill. The light in the inn's window promised comfort. Margaret met him at the door, her tone calm, her smile perfect. Sarah's stew filled the room with warmth. Catherine placed flowers in a vase, though no one knew where she had found them during that cold season. Elizabeth offered a blanket and a joke that made him laugh. That night, Kellerman sat near the fire. His eyes reflected the flames. He held sorrow inside him. Catherine joined him with 2 glasses of spiced drink. She listened to him speak about love lost, about nights filled with silence, about dreams that now returned empty. She placed her hand on his and whispered, "Sadness does not have to stay forever." The next morning, he smiled while eating breakfast. He forgot his travel plans and added 2 more nights to his stay. He spoke of returning again soon, but he never made it to Kentucky. His horse was found days later, walking alone. No one found his body. No one searched long. They said perhaps he was taken by wolves. But he had not been taken. Hinrich Zimmer, a man who worked the land, waited hidden in the trees that morning. As Kellerman rode away, Hinrich struck him from behind. Death came quick. The purse was returned to Margaret. The body was hidden. The sisters gathered at their table that night. Coins spread across the wood. "This amount," Margaret said, "is more than we make in a year." Catherine whispered. He would have given everything if we had asked. Sarah, without emotion, poured water from a jug and said nothing. Elizabeth folded the blanket he had used and placed it back on the guest bed. They had discovered something more powerful than money. They had learned how to make people vanish. Over the next months, the sisters shaped a method. Margaret kept records, watching who arrived, who left, who mattered. Sarah grew herbs, not just the ones that healed, but also those that poisoned. Catherine listened to men speak of wives they missed, hopes they buried, wounds that never closed. She became whatever they needed. Elizabeth, sweet and curious, learned how to ask the right questions without sounding like she cared. The bodies were carried under night skies to caves Klaus and Hinrich had found. Some were buried under loose stone, others deep beneath moss. Objects like rings and letters were burned or buried elsewhere. The second man was William Fraser. He brought silver coins from a tobacco harvest. He preferred quiet, traveled alone, and had no wife or children. He stayed longer than he planned. Catherine asked him to read poetry aloud. He blushed when she said his voice was beautiful. He stayed another week. Each day, Sarah added a drop of something into his tea. He felt lightheaded, then weak. He thought it was from travel. On his last night, Catherine invited him to dine in her room. The wine tasted sweet. The candles flickered. His words were full of hope. His heart stopped before the night ended. And next morning, his body was found in bed. A doctor might have guessed heart trouble. Margaret arranged a grave beside others near the inn. The stone carried his name. It looked like respect. It was a lie. No one wrote letters asking about him. His horse was sold. His wagon carried new supplies. His coins stayed with the sisters. They were careful not to act too often. No more than a few each year. It kept rumors small. Each sister had her role. Catherine studied sadness. She knew how to match her voice to a man's grief. Sarah expanded her garden. Some plants could make skin cold. Others slowed the heart. A few brought quick silence. Elizabeth seemed harmless. She asked about letters, destinations, business matters, always with wide eyes and innocent words. Years passed. By 1838, the inn welcomed travelers from distant cities. Margaret offered new comforts hunting trips, fine drinks, warm horses. Their business grew. Money came in, some earned honestly, much not. Jonathan Waverley arrived alone. He mapped land for the government. His work kept him far from cities. Catherine walked with him through woods, speaking of animals and flowers. Sarah gave him strong stew. Elizabeth praised his maps. Margaret asked about land sales. He stayed for weeks. Poison worked slowly. His body failed. His equipment was sold. His name joined the others in the mountain cave. The sisters became known in the region as hardworking, kind, and generous. They gave food to neighbors. Catherine read stories to children. Sarah shared herbs for fevers. Elizabeth hosted dances. The darkness behind their eyes remained unseen. Klaus and Hinrich helped hide everything. Their strength and silence were tools. But Hinrich changed after a fall. He began taking medicine that clouded his thoughts. He could not sleep. He heard voices. One day, in a moment of weakness, he said, "They watch me when I close my eyes. 43 men. They cry out." Sarah told him to rest. She made him dinner. Wine was served. He died quietly. Klaus survived the poison, but his health broke. He started to doubt. He asked questions. Margaret prepared for escape. One last guest arrived, Samuel Hartwell, a cotton trader. He had money, plans, and someone expecting him. They followed their steps. But this time, they made a mistake. When Samuel missed his meeting, someone noticed. Questions were asked. A sheriff named Thomas Brennan came. He asked politely. He looked through records. Margaret smiled. Catherine pretended to be shocked. Sarah offered tea. Elizabeth said she was frightened, but the sheriff found a pocket watch. Then a journal. Then letters. He found Sarah's garden. He found her books. Klaus, sick and tired, spoke to the sheriff. In town, some secrets do not want to stay hidden, he said. The sheriff returned with others. They searched the woods. They found the cave. Bones lay inside. Rings, shoes, mats, buttons. 43 bodies. The sisters were taken to court. Crowds watched. Margaret stayed calm. Catherine wept. Sarah said nothing. Elizabeth claimed fear. The jury took little time. Margaret, Catherine, and Sarah were sentenced to hang. Elizabeth was sent to prison. On the day of the hanging, Margaret stared ahead. Catherine held Sarah's hand. Elizabeth lived alone in a cell for 37 years. Klaus vanished. Some say he moved north. Others say he drank until memory disappeared. The inn was sold. No one wanted to sleep there. A mining company tore it down. A stone marks the place where bones were found. It reads, "Here lie unknown travelers. May they find peace." New laws were made. Inns had to keep better records. Guest deaths required reports. More watches were placed on quiet roads. The story became a warning. Behind kindness, evil can hide. The Cunningham Sisters smiled, laughed, and served hot stew. But behind the walls of Millbrook Inn, death waited. What do you think really happened? Do you believe all secrets were revealed? Or do more bodies rest in silent hills, unnamed and forgotten? Speak your thoughts. Stay curious. History has many shadows. Some still stretch toward us,